Okay, after filming me here to tell you that there are some points in the video where I'm not looking at the camera for some reason, so if you see that I'm not looking away to be untruthful or anything, please just enjoy the video to the fullest extent. I'll try to fix this because it hasn't really happened before. Thank you and enjoy the video. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Perry, also known as Books Aren't Boring, and today we are going to be talking about The Grapes of Wrath, which is the first summer reading book I did for school, so it's a little bit back in my memory, but I did some refreshing on it, and now I remember everything about it that I liked, even though it was a little bit tedious. Not as tedious as East of Eden, though, so it's going to be a little bit of a shorter video than East of Eden. If you haven't seen East of Eden, go check it out. It is one of my longer videos, and in fact, I believe my first one, but it is worth checking out because East of Eden is very daunting at first, but it's actually pretty interesting, so make sure to check that out, like I said, and now we're gonna get on with the video. So the first thing you're gonna notice about Grapes of Wrath is that there are interlude chapters. It starts with an interlude chapter, and the interlude chapters are basically there to set the scene. So the book is set during the Dust Bowl, right? So the Dust Bowl is like dusty. People are moving away from the area. It's like in the Midwest, so people don't want to live there anymore, so they're going to California where it's better and they can get money. Or they think they can get money, but in reality it's so saturated with migrant workers they can't really get any money. But the interlude chapters are basically there to serve as like a vehicle of metaphor for the plight of the Jode family, who is the main family in the series and the one we are going to be following throughout the book. So when you see these interlude chapters, make sure to pay attention to what they say, and then as you go through the chapter after them, you'll notice that the content of that interlude chapter actually pretty much relates to what the people in the next chapter are doing. That actually took me a bit to figure out, but knowing that as you go in is pretty good and definitely something that you should make sure you know, because then you won't be skipping over the chapters. And because the book seems really daunting, what I'm going to say is that the way I read it was I read one chapter a day, and that's kind of not a lot. You'd have to start pretty early because mine was a summer reading. However, you will note that the book is only 30 chapters, so it'll only take you a month to do it if you have it for summer reading. And each day that you have an interlude chapter, they're normally about only 3 pages compared to the 30 pages that the big sections are. So it's kind of like a little break in between is how I saw it. I'd like to preface this by saying that my personally favorite parts of the book, which you will see when you read it, is not necessarily the beginning. The beginning is a little bit boring in my opinion, but once they get on the road and they start having things happen to them, that's pretty interesting. And also the Central Committee camp, which is near the middle end, but it's still like the part where you aren't focusing as much on them surviving and more about the relationships they're having with the people at that camp, because you get to see more of the domestic side of the rush and the perspectives of other people that are going towards California. And of course the ending, which the ending is insane, and I don't really, we had entire conversations on just that ending. It was a lot, but it is what it is. So let's begin with a general a general rundown of all the characters, because there's a lot of characters that aren't even side characters that are just the main family. So we have the Jodes. There is Ma and Pa Jode. Now these two have a sort of flipped role, because normally it's the woman of the house, but Ma Jode is really strong and good, and Pa Jode is kind of just there, he wants to be good, but he's not as good. Then we have Grandma and Grandpa Jode. Both of them die. The grandpa dies first and then grandma dies second. They're there as secondary characters, but to show that every generation of the family was impacted during the Dust Bowl move. So yeah, then we have Al Jode, who is the brother of the family, one of the brothers, and he is stereotypical teenager of the time. He likes cars and girls, and then he doesn't run away with a girl at the end, but he stays with her instead of going with the family to wherever during the flood. And then we have Tom Jode, who is the main character. He's a guy. Yeah, his personality is protagonist. And then we have Rose of Sharon, who is the daughter who's pregnant as ethereal, because that's what women do when they get pregnant. Yeah. And then we have Noah Jode, who eventually really just runs away because he thinks he's a burden to everyone. Connie is Rose of Sharon's like boyfriend something. Runs away because he's a deadbeat. Jim Casey is a name you'll see crop up a lot. He's not related to any of them. He's just like a friend of the family. He's a priest, but he's not a priest anymore because he like discovered enlightenment beyond being a priest and decided to leave. Then we have Winfield and Ruthie, who are little kids, and their antics are kind of just like adorable. Shows that the kids of the generation aren't really like used to the luxuries of the world. Like there's one scene where they go to the Central Committee camp, because while I was doing research for this, I specifically read like that section, and they like went to the toilets and thought that by flushing the toilet they had broken it, and then their mom was like, no, that's just how you use it, and they like got really embarrassed. And it's basically like, at the time those weren't really commodities that everyone could use because how expensive they were. So throughout the book, you'll see a lot of extra characters. I'm not really going to go into those characters necessarily. They are important, but they're not central. Like, they're not important to understanding the story. You need to remember the relationships they've had, the impact they've had on other characters, like the police officers and then the people that they meet at the camps that help them out. But by name, not necessarily, because there's so many of them. You'll see like every single camp they go to, they'll meet like 3 people that'll help them, and they're like family, because of course when you're on the road all going to the same destination, you're all like starving and dying. Like, you're gonna have some sort of like bond that even though you don't know each other, you're gonna have that bond. Then at the end of the book, which I'm kind of skipping ahead, but it's basically just a trajectory they're moving through from, they start in Oklahoma, then they go to California, and you just, the whole progression of the story is like near the end, they're at California. So they get there, they go to the migrant farm, they get work. Their work is, they're supposed to be like suppressing some kind of, I think, riot, and they don't want to do that, but they still need to pick peaches. Yeah, it's some kind of like fruit. They pick them and then they have to get them perfect, or they don't get like their nickel or whatever. It's a very small amount of money that they get, which is why a lot of people starve when they get there, because there's too many workers for like the amount of work that they need. So they just end up like living in like a ramshackle little house with a little bit of money that they have, and then they have to haggle with the on-site like stores because they won't sell things for the small enough prices that they need, which is kind of like, I guess, economy, but also they just aren't giving enough money for their work, so they're not going to be able to pay for it, which is kind of like, are they trying to like weed out the weak or something? It's kind of weird, especially because these people are usually moving there with large families, because that's how they operated back then, I'm assuming. Like, you needed a lot of kids to help out with the labor. You kept the grandparents there so they could, 3-generation household, because it wasn't nuclear family time really yet until later on. The ending is just, it's weird because they basically get flooded out of the camp and then they have to go down. Rose of Sharon gives birth to a stillborn, so that's sad, and they send it off in like a river Moses kind of thing. I'm pretty sure that's some kind of biblical allegory. Let me see. I was right. I just checked it. It's a Moses allegory. We got it, boys, for once. Then, yeah, and then they meet these people in a barn. 2 people. It's like a father and his son, and like Rose of Sharon nurses the father. It's very odd, but I guess she's supposed to be like the giving one. It's supposed to be more biblical stuff that I can't guess in this case. It's supposed to be a symbol of like maternal love, but it's just kind of weird imagery if you think about it. Like, I don't care how biblical or significant it is. Who knows at this point? I know this might sound discouraging to those who are trying to figure out reasons to read the book. Please read the book. But I'm just saying that if you read that ending and are very confused and or just kind of weirded out, you are not alone, because a lot of people also thought that. It was a discussion point in the class when we got back. It was my summer before sophomore yearbook, and we had a whole discussion about that. The whole idea of the Grapes of Wrath is just to like showcase the general struggles of the people who are migrating from the Midwest to California during the time of the Dust Bowl, where all the crops became like useless. They weren't able to use the land because there was too much dust, And of course it's like a difficult time, but also they have all the help of like the migrants that are going along with them. And When I first read this book and I heard that they had a car, it's not like the car that you'd envision today, but it is definitely a car. And for some reason, I didn't think that they had cars back then because, you know, breaking news, teenager does not understand the concept of time and inventions. But they did have a car in this book, which means it was not that long ago. And therefore, like, this isn't something that was our distant past. Like, we can probably still find people that relate to this story in a way today. Like, it's not just a one-time thing. Like, sure, it's illustrating something that happened one time, but the plight of the Jode family is not something that just happened once. It happened to like thousands of millions of people, which is why they had so much trouble in the migrant camps later on, because there were just so many people. Of course, there are always going to be aspects of the book that, like, you may not enjoy. Like, the interlude chapters might seem boring to you. To that, I suggest getting an audiobook, but also putting it on probably 1.5 times, because the people that I've seen read the book on Audible, or just any audiobook in general, this is not sponsored, please do not think this is sponsored, they speak really slowly. So if you want to, you'll probably have to speed it up a little bit, but that's not really a problem. That just means you'll get done with the book faster. So yeah. The book itself, like, the style of writing is not the most engaging. John Steinbeck tends to spend a lot of time on his descriptions and, like, a lot of, like, the setting up of scenes and then going through with the scenes, except in the Central Committee where he kind of speeds things up, which is, I think I like it more because the story progression is, like, faster there. But in general, I'd say that if you're gonna read it, try to find, like, an audiobook somewhere, like on YouTube maybe, this platform, whoa, and then you'll be able to get an idea of it, you know. My whole job of this channel isn't to tell you every little symbol and theme of the book, so I'm not really going to go into that, but what I'm hoping is that you came out of this video with a better understanding of, you know, what is interesting about the Grapes of Wrath, you know, the plight of migrant workers, and then just the general little things in life. The book takes the little things that happen in people's everyday lives, maybe some tragedies that happen, and turns them into something that may not be relatable to the reader, but is kind of relatable, and that they can look at the situation and be like, oh, I can see myself in that situation, you know? And I wore this shirt to represent the dust of the Dust Bowl. I know I am a creative genius. Subscribe to see more of my creative genius. Leave a comment, maybe, with more suggestions. I've started to get more ideas going as I remember the books that I've had to read for school, but still, if you want to see some less book-oriented videos and more on the, like, list side, as I have a playlist with, like, my 2 videos where I make lists of certain things. If you want to see a more humorous video, I can definitely make that. So please read The Grapes of Wrath. It is a good experience. Hopefully you get to read it in a time where you're not rushed between chapters, because it's very difficult to do that, especially with this book, because it's kind of not meant for that shoved in one sitting type of read. It's meant for more segmented reads. But if you do have to read it in big chunks, then I hope you at least just take away what the book is about. Hopefully you seeing this overarching summary helps you understand it a little bit more. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like this content, or at least leave a like. Yeah. You can see more of these videos like this on Books Aren't Boring, and I also have a playlist of exclusively the book-related videos I've done thus far, which is a lot of my videos, but I just want to make sure that they're compiled into that, so make sure you check out that playlist if you want to see more videos like this. So thank you again for watching, and see you next time. Bye!